Okay, we're good. So welcome to the Community Adjustment meeting. The municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc acknowledges that it's located on Treaty 21 territory, and we are thankful for the generations of people who've taken care of this land, including the Chippewa of the Thames First Nation, Munsee Delaware First Nation, and the Oneida Nation of the Thames. Beginning a roll call. Jake.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Jake Durder. I'm the Acting Secretary-Treasurer for the Committee of Adjustment. I'll be hosting the meeting tonight and managing participants. Committee members joining us this evening include Councillor Kennis, Member Kutmar, Member Vian, Councillor Peckman, Deputy Mayor McGuire is absent, Councillor Derbyshire, and Member Terpstra, who's our chair. Municipal staff tonight in attendance is Erin. She's a planner with the County of Middlesex. Alyssa, also a planner with the County of Middlesex. Saja, she's our Development Services Coordinator, and Melanie from the Legal and Legislative team. Tonight we have 6 applications to be heard by the committee. The chair will introduce each application and provide the applicant and agent an opportunity to speak to the application. The planner will follow with their report. The public will then be invited to make comments or ask questions about the application. The chair will then call upon the committee to ask questions and make comments before the chair calls for a vote on the application. Once a decision is made, there's a 20-day appeal period from the date of decision for minor variances and 20 days from the date of notice of decision for consents. If anyone wishes to be notified of a decision, you can make a request today or make a written request following the meeting. Thank you.
Can you guys hear all that? He's talking loud enough? Okay.
Yeah, good. Okay, and I'm looking for number 2, approval of the agenda. I'm looking for someone to make a recommendation to approve it. Brian, seconded by Dale. All in favor? And that carries. Is there a declaration of pecuniary interest by anyone? Seeing none, we'll carry on. The reading and correction and approval of the minutes from last month. Everyone seen that? Yeah. Any questions? It's all good. So I need a recommendation for approval. Yeah. Randy, and seconded by Frank. All in favor? And that carries. Okay, so then our first submission for consideration tonight is application for consent B22 2024 8040 Irish Drive. It now has a new number 2025-22. And Alyssa, you've got the report on it.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. This conditions memo before committee tonight is for a surplus farm dwelling severance application, which was originally brought to the February 6th Committee of Adjustment meeting. The purpose of that application was to sever a surplus farm dwelling from a larger farm parcel as a result of farm consolidation. The application was approved in principle, and staff were directed to prepare the conditions of approval. While the application did not qualify for a surplus farm dwelling severance application, this was a consideration of committee, and therefore a recommendation of rezoning has been added to prohibit residential uses on the retained farmland to ensure that only one new residential dwelling is achieved through the severance on the severed lot. The application has been advised of this condition as well and is supportive. As such, I am recommending that the report BVP 2025-22, which is related to the application for consent of B22-2024 regarding the property located at 8040 Irish Drive, be received for information.
Okay. Any comments or questions by committee members? We did see this last month. Frank, yes?
So I guess a question then on the recommendation to receive, can we approve it or just receive it and come back at a later time for approval, or how does that work?
Going back to Erin.
Sure, through the chair. That is the recommendation of planning staff because of our original recommendation. Okay. However, it's my understanding that you are able to make a motion based on approval, denial, deferral, whatever else that you prefer.
Okay. So I'm looking then for a recommendation, Frank.
I would make a motion to approve the consent application B22-2024.
Okay, supported by Brian. All in favor? And that carries. Okay, so application, 5.2, application for consent is B1 2025. This is at 6766 Innadale Drive. Joe and Julie Hardy. Anyone in the audience for this one? Yep. Joe. Joe? Nice to meet you, Joe. Okay, I'll have Alyssa do her report first, and then if you have any comments, you can add that. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. This application before committee tonight is to create an agricultural lot from a larger farm parcel due to a merge under common ownership. The owner is proposing to retain the portion of the lot with the existing home and accessory buildings and convey the other portion of the lot with farmland to a family member. The subject property is located on the north side of Innadale Drive, east of Melbourne Road. The total lands are approximately 81 hectares in size and are made up of land with frontages on separate roads that are connected by an approximately 5.3 meter strip of land where the two corners meet. The proposed lands to be severed are approximately 40.5 hectares with 589 meters of frontage along Scotchmere Drive and 653 meters of frontage along Melbourne Road. The lands contain farmland for crop production as well as an open municipal drain that runs through the property. The land is almost entirely regulated by the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority. The proposed lands to be retained are approximately 40.5 hectares as well, with 60 meters of frontage along Innadale Drive, containing a single detached dwelling, 2 storage sheds, and farmland for crop production. A municipal drain runs north to south across this property, containing areas regulated by the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority as well. No comments were provided by the public prior to the development of this report. Provided agency comments include the Senior Development Coordinator, recommending that if approved, a condition be included requiring a drainage assessment. Middlesex County Emergency Services provided comments concerning 911 property addresses for the proposed parcels. A comment was also made by the Conservation Authority after the report was provided, so it's not within the comments, but it is stating that they do not support the construction of a single detached dwelling or accessory structures within their hazard lands, as they have potential to create new hazards and aggravate existing hazards. They also note that the creation of a new habitable lot within the flood hazard can also increase the potential risk to life and property, thereby stating that the application is not consistent with policy through their perspective, but they do acknowledge that these lots were separate at one point. The Provincial Planning Statement, Middlesex County Official Plan, and Strathroy-Caradoc Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw all permit the creation of agricultural farm lots which meet the minimum farm parcel size of 40 hectares. Through the analysis, planning staff are satisfied that both of these farm parcels do meet this minimum farm parcel size requirement and will remain zoned as general agricultural A1 zone to be used for agricultural purposes, specifically crop production. Regarding the concerns from the Conservation Authority, there is no change in use on both proposed lots and no new dwellings or accessory buildings are being proposed at this time. And if they were, that would be a discussion held with the property owner and the Conservation Authority. Therefore, planning staff are of the opinion that the application is consistent with the PPS and conforms to the county and municipal official plans. Given the above, I am recommending approval of consent application B1 2025, subject to the conditions provided in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. And Joe, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think she's pretty well got her covered there, so she speaks better than I do. So.
Good. Any comments from committee members? Frank?
Oh, right, no microphone. Just a question, so these properties actually merged because the corner actually touched each other and now it's just being unmerged again, so to speak?
Through the chair, yes, they were separate at one point, and just due to them both being underneath the same ownership name, then they just merged again because of their connection at that corner.
Okay. Any other comments? No? I'm looking for a recommendation on this one. Brian?
Recommendation that we move forward with the severance, whatever the recommendation here is.
Support?
That, oh yeah, sure.
Support for that, Dale? All in favor? And that carries. moving on to 5.3, an application for consent B 2/2025, range 1 south north park lot 1 and range 1 south north park. Well, it's got lot 2 and range first part lots 2, 3. Wow, there's a lot of description there. I'm going to carry on. Bruce Harold Crothers is the owner of the property. Are you in the audience today?
Yes, I'm here. That's, I can hear. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome. So Melissa, I'll go to you for your report first.
Thank you, Chair. This application before committee tonight is to create a new agricultural lot for estate planning purposes. The owner is proposing to retain both lots until it is decided who the severed lot would be transferred or sold to. The subject property is located on the south side of Longwoods Drive, east of Milburn Road. The lands are approximately 75.69 hectares in size as a whole, and the property abuts a hydro corridor to the north. The proposed lands to be severed are approximately 49.1 hectares in size, with 908 meters of frontage along Switzer Drive, containing farmland and crop production. A municipal drain is also present on the property, and it contains lands regulated by the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority in areas of significant woodlands. The proposed lands to be retained are approximately 26.59 hectares, with 15 meters of frontage along Longwoods Road, containing farmland and crop production, and a westerly portion of this lot is being used by the neighboring property as a racetrack. There's an existing easement as well on the retained lands for the adjacent hydro line on the northern portion of that property. No comments were provided by the public prior to the development of this report. Provided agency comments include the Senior Development Coordinator providing concerns about access from Longwoods Road due to the limited frontage and the hydro easement. Another comment was provided recommending that, if approved, a condition be included that an entrance be added to the retained parcel. Middlesex County Emergency Services provided comments regarding municipal 911 property addresses, and the Middlesex County Engineer advised of county road dedication requirements of up to 18 meters on Longwoods Road. Hydro One has also advised that they have no objection in principle to the proposed severance, provided that their easement rights are protected and maintained. Through the analysis, this proposal for consent is not consistent with the provincial planning statement and is not in conformity with the county and local official plan. The retained parcel would not meet the minimum farm parcel size requirements for an independent farm lot of 40 hectares and cannot be consolidated with the existing home farm due to the barrier created by the corridor, as they are located north of that. And the retained parcel has limited frontage onto Longwoods Road, which is the only opportunity to access this parcel, as all other sides are landlocked. We assume it may be currently accessed through the existing property on Switzer Drive. And given the reasons above and within the provided report, I am recommending denial of consent application B2/2025. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Mr. Crothers, do you have any comments you want to add to that?
Well, I don't know how much time you have. I'm not that smooth of a talker. I can give you my reasons why I would like to have this two parcels. It always used to be that the one parcel that's 65 acres has been in my family for maybe close to 100 years. My grandfather owned it. And then in 1978, I bought some land that adjoined it. And of course, I guess it gets hooked together, even though it got different tax notices and stuff, but it's all became one parcel of 185 acres approximately. And when I'm trying to do my estate planning now, I don't think I'm gonna live forever. I'm 73 years old. I'm trying to figure out, I got at least 5 people that I want to try to help out financially or with some of the land. I don't have anybody to take over the farm, which makes me sad and unfortunate. But my one child, I have 2 children and I have 3 sisters, so there's 5 people that want a slice of the pie. And thank goodness that my son, even though he doesn't want a farm, he wants to hang on to that land and lease it out. He does not want to sell land. And that makes me feel good, because I don't want to sell land either, but I'm good enough to try to help out my sisters. because they didn't get a fair share back when I inherited a lot of the home farm. So, it gives me way more options if I can get this severed back the way it used to be. And I would like my son and my daughter to hang on to what's been in my family for 100 years, that one parcel that does not meet the 100 acres, I know. And maybe someday the other chunk will have to be sold, I don't know. So that's, I can tell you, keep on talking, but I think you're gonna get sick of me, but that's my story here.
Okay.
Myself personally, I would not want to sell it. I want to just keep on, and if I couldn't do it, I would lease it out, but when I die, my children will get, but before that, my sisters may need some more of their family, and that's why I wouldn't mind selling something now to keep them happy right now. But anyways, I'll shut up now, but that's the story.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Committee members, comments, questions? Steve?
Yes, thank you. When I was reading the report, it mentioned that your home is north of the property, so what address is actually your home? Is it the...
6781, 6781.
And was that, like I see the white lines on the thing, was that one property at one time?
Yes, it used to, there used to be two properties at one time. There used to be two properties at one time that my family had, and then I bought two more properties. So there's 4 different roll numbers for taxes. But now it's lumped into 2 because the hydro line is separate. That's what makes me,
So 6687 Longwood Road, is that at all connected with the property? Because it looks like when the close-up that's how the field was accessed.
That's a hydro property there.
Okay. And can you drive through the easement?
yes, I do, yeah.
And you farm underneath the easement?
No, I do not farm underneath it, but I drive, I go over it.
Okay, sorry, I'm just asking some background stuff here before I ask my question to planners. So, just because the easement goes across, can we not connect the two properties together by resolution or by, so that together they would meet the 100 acres?
Well, through the chair, it's not actually just an easement, it's actually land owned by Hydro One. So it's a physical separation that we don't have the ability to grant access through or anything like that. So when the Hydro One was talking about their easement rights, it's actually, there's a portion on closer to the frontage here where they have their poles kind of dip into his property. So there's an easement that exists along that area as well. So it's physically separated by a parcel that's not owned by the owner.
Right. So it would be a different situation if it was just the easement going across?
Yes.
All right. And one more question. So it would appear, Mr. Carruthers, that you own a piece of the fairgrounds use?
Yes, that's right.
And how long
That is correct. I don't know the fair board were aware of that before, but yes.
Well, no, I certainly wasn't aware. So
I think that goes back to my grandfather just letting them use it. You see, I don't know what.
So is there any agreement or?
No, hell no. They didn't even know that I was. They get pissed off at me if I'm making noise with a chainsaw. Besides, they're doing their horse racing around, but they shouldn't get mad at me because I own that junk.
Thank you for your generosity. I'll say that.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I guess this is where, if you kind of look at the one before, they're getting ahead of this before we end up, you know, they're, you know, the Hardys being down the road and then trying to sever this. This is something that maybe back in the day when Bruce bought it, had somebody said, you know, you should put this in 2 separate or we're gonna join it. You know, like, to me, when I look at it, it should go with his home farm anyways. This other one's 121 acres, the back piece.
Yeah.
Like, I know the front piece doesn't particularly meet it, but if you put it together with his other hunk of home farm, you got yourself, you know, 2 pieces. I mean, it'd be my recommendation that we somehow come up with a solution that, you know, makes this work here for Mr. Carruthers. So I don't know how we go back to that or whether we refer that back to them or what we need to do, but
But our comment from Melissa is the size of the properties, right? They do not meet the 100 acres each, or 40 hectares each.
The retained parcel does not meet the minimum farm parcel size, and then there's also the issues with the access that would have to be created, and if that's feasible to be done onto Longwoods Road.
Steve?
So just eyeballing it, the original farm as well, if it would not meet also the acreage, is that correct? If the white lines are the property lines, is that the case?
Through
So if you're looking at the map,
Mhm.
where you see the number 2, his home is to the north of that, right?
Yes.
Right? So does the property go all the way across to the second white line or the first white line?
That is a great question. Perhaps Bruce can answer that one.
I do believe that's why he has 4 roll numbers. So if you look at the 4 pieces of dirt that where the little arrow is, that long narrow piece, then there's this home farm piece, then there's the red piece and the yellow piece. That would be your 4 roll numbers that all gets jammed together.
Yeah. He does own that second, further piece.
Yes.
This one. Yeah, that one, thank you.
That's yeah, because he said I have 4 roll numbers, but they're all separate, but it's one payable. So what they do is they just, as you keep buying and don't put different names on, somebody made the great agreement that we're gonna do this, but you still have roll numbers for all separate properties.
So again, I'll come back to the question, is there any way that we can, even though they're 2 separate pieces of properties, have some kind of agreement that says they belong together?
Through the chair, there's no legal route to compel him to maintain them together. They are 2 separately conveyable pieces and they could be sold that way.
Is there some way of creating 40 hectares above the line and 40 below the line? Like, it's certainly more than 40 below the line, but I'm assuming that everything that we see there above the red line and above the yellow line, up until that corner again is Mr. Carruthers' property. Is that, can you create 40 hectares there?
Move the red line.
Well, or not necessarily move the red line, but if there's a white line that's up in the top portion in the middle there that goes this way, like if you put those 2 together, can you get to 40 hectares somehow?
Like extend the lands to be retained?
No, the total is 185 acres. So
But of all 4 properties, or is there more? I sort of grasp that there's more.
Correct?
Yes.
But I'm talking above the line, Jess. So that one, and then on top of that, see that white line there, and then that portion.
Yeah. But this would have been the original farm that the hiker went
But can you
through
create
and separated it.
2 new? I don't know if I'm clear as to what I'm trying to say, but I'm just concerned that if we, and I fully appreciate what Mr. Carruthers wants to do. I'm just concerned that we open a door to create farm parcels under 40 hectares. We create that precedent. How do we turn the next guy down? So
How many short are we?
For the retained lot, it is 26.59 hectares.
And the lot that's severable, sorry, is that forest? Just to the left of the arrow? Like that's forest, right?
Yes,
What-
that is forest.
What about on the other side of the
But
red line?
see, but the rest of it isn't forest, like that, it's a different color of the field,
It's
but
just
that's not
different.
forest.
That's just what I was asking, yeah.
But along Switzer, there's forest again, you see, the darker is forest again along Switzer.
Over there.
Yes, there's forest, and that's right, those are the 2 that are forest. That is a field, a workable field.
The hard part is if you take more out of the red and move it over, now we're just creating some crazy lot lines.
Right.
you know, and this is the most logical severance.
Except there's no access.
Well, you have it off of Melbourne Road, you just gotta figure out how to do it.
Put some gravel down and.
See that there? There is a right, like,
Here,
yes,
not wide enough for anything to get through.
15 meters, right?
Through the chair, the way that we calculate frontage on this type of lot, we go 6 meters back and cut it across, and that does have 50 meters of frontage. Technically, I mean, there's hydro lines, there's, you know, this is a very low-lying area. I think it might be achievable, but it might be difficult to put in an access.
But that low-lying area is not controlled by the Conservation Authority, right?
I'm not sure.
So technically, if he's got a couple of dump truck loads of gravel, he could probably create himself an access.
Potentially, as long as, you know, if this has an environmental protection zone on it, there's usually some sort of feature here. So I would assume this is regulated, but I can certainly check.
Can I make a motion that we defer this till we find out more information about the entrance and what possibilities there are for Mr. Carruthers? And then maybe in the same vein, see if we can resolve the fairgrounds issue?
Oh, you mean to resolve it, like, I don't know what, like, it looks like it's my property,
Yeah,
so how am I gonna resolve that?
yeah, I don't know.
I just let them, my grandfather just said they could use it, but I don't know, liability, but I don't know.
I would just hate to see a situation where a property owner who doesn't have your family history comes in and suddenly shuts down the fairgrounds. So I would hate to see that legacy go as well.
well,
And that may be the exception for this piece of property, that it's smaller, because if that piece gets, I don't know, donated or sold for $1 to the agricultural society, then we can waive the, that would be, to me, a planning justification to provide the smaller lot, given that that's some pretty significant history of the community.
But that should get resolved.
Well, I think if we can satisfy what Mr. Carruthers really wants to do, because I don't think you consider that this is really, when you're looking at your marketable piece of property, that's not really a chunk of it. So, you know, let's try and see if we can resolve his issue to do what he wants to do for his family planning, because we know that's a significant issue for all farmers in Ontario. Let's see if we can find a solution to about. And I don't think I have enough information here in front of me to make a decision one way or the other tonight. But
Okay, Aaron, back to you.
Through the chair, just looking for more information on what type of information you would like to see.
well, the number one point is access,
Yes.
right? So if the planning justification exists to have a smaller lot because of the Ag Society piece, then we still need to resolve the access piece. So we need information to see if he can create an access big enough for farm equipment to go in there in that narrow strip.
Okay, so is that some sort of expert speaking to?
I would think that our roads department should probably be able to, between the county, well, that'd be a county road, right? So the county's gonna have to give their okay on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I made a motion to defer.
So the recommendation is to defer it. Support for that? Yeah, Randy? All in favor? Okay, that is now deferred. Okay, so our next one is an application for minor variance A1/2025. This is 711 Woods Edge Road, Mount Bridges. The owners are Christina Wilson and Jordan Pinch. Are they in the audience? Anyone else in the audience for this one? No? Okay. And we have, Paul Purdy. Yeah, you're here as well? Okay, thank you. So I'll go first to Alyssa for her report, and then we'll have a discussion on it.
Thank you, Chair. The minor variance application before committee this evening is seeking relief from section 4.23A of the zoning bylaw to permit an accessory building with a minimum interior lot line setback of 0.1 meters, whereas the bylaw requires 0.6 meters. The applicant is also seeking relief from section 5.34 of the zoning bylaw to permit a 0 meter side yard setback, whereas the bylaw requires a minimum 1.2 meters for the uncovered deck. The minor variance requests will recognize the existing buildings and the structures on the property which were put in place by the previous owner. The subject property is located on the south side of Woods Edge Road, east of Adelaide Road in Mount Bridges. The property contains a single detached dwelling, a below-grade pool, shed, uncovered deck, and a poolside open-air bar structure. The poolside bar and deck were constructed around 5 years ago by the previous owner. The bar structure did not require a building permit as it was below the minimum size requirements for one, and as such the deficiency was only identified during a bylaw investigation which was filed in 2024. The previous owner was aware of these deficiencies but did not address them prior to the sale of the property to the current owner. And the previous owner did advise that they constructed these structures as close to these side lot lines to make the most efficient use of their backyard. Comments were provided by a member of the public prior to the development of this report, and they had raised various bylaw issues such as the size and use of the fire pit, the concrete around the pool being constructed to the fence line, and the deck being attached to the fence. Concerns about privacy, noise, environmental issues, and stormwater runoff were shared. Further details were provided in an attachment to the report, which included photos. Provided agency comments included the Senior Development Coordinator having concerns about water and snow runoff from the roof, which is directed onto the neighboring property. Runoff should be contained and controlled within the property. Another note was made that if eaves troughs were attached to the open air bar structure, that this would likely cause an encroachment onto the neighboring property due to the setback right now only being 0.1 meters. The Upper Thames River Conservation Authority advised that they had no objections to this proposal. I have reviewed the application against the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and as indicated in the report, it is staff's opinion that the application does not meet these 4 tests, as there are direct impacts on the neighboring property. The lack of separation between these structures and the fence creates concerns about snow and water runoff from the roof of the bar structure. Fire safety concerns also arise from the structures being right up against the fence with no separation. And privacy concerns are also created by the deck being constructed against the fence and being higher than the ground itself would be, thus allowing someone to look directly over the fence into the adjacent yard and for objects to fall from one property into the other. And as such, I'm recommending denial of minor variance application A1-2025 due to the numerous impacts and concerns which cannot be considered minor. Thank you.
Thank you, Alyssa. So committee members, you've all seen all the pictures. There's a lot of pictures with this one. It gives you a good description of the properties and what the issues are. Right? Okay, so first I'm going to go to the owners of the property. Do you have anything to comment to this?
I'll speak on our behalf, and bear with me, I've been losing my voice. We purchased this property on November 21st of last year. We were actually supposed to close the day before, and that's when it was brought to our attention about the plumbing infractions that were on the property. So they were able to be addressed before we closed. These bylaw issues were not attached to the title of the property at all, so we were completely unaware of them, and we were not advised by the realtor or the homeowner. We bought this property primarily for its backyard. We moved here from Wasaga Beach 2.5 years ago. We moved to London to a subdivision. Mount Bridges looked like a beautiful place. We wanted a pool. We wanted the bar set up. We had it down to 2 houses between Mount Bridges and Kamoka, and we picked Mount Bridges because it had the nicer backyard. That was the selling feature for us. For me to change this at this point, There would be a significant issue on my side if I was to pull back the deck. It's all gravel there and there's no soil whatsoever. Also, because we have the 6-foot high fence, which creates a lot of privacy, we would have shade in that area at all times and wouldn't be able to grow grass. Additionally, I think there's a 6-foot high fence there, which creates a lot of privacy. I know that the next member of the public had some issues with the previous owner, but if that was a chain link fence, we'd be looking right at each other anyway, so this does create more privacy. Additionally, with the bar structure, it is a 3-sided structure. It's got a very minimal sized roof. The roof does drain towards the fence line where the neighbor has planted very mature trees, and you'll see in his photos that the grass there is not affected. I think the grass has been affected over time due to 3 large dogs, maybe neighbors that didn't get along, and running up and down the fence line. We want to have a great relationship with our neighbors, and this is a horrible way for us to start off. And honestly, I don't know how we could move the structure. We would have to eliminate it entirely, which would be the bar structure entirely, and we could cut the deck back to the edge of the house, which still wouldn't maintain. My house is closer to the lot line than the permitted deck would be. Other than that, I've got to say our houses are pretty close together. I even have a text message from the neighbor's wife saying, "I'm sorry, my child's yelling inside the house. I hope it's not bugging you." So privacy in our area is give and take, but we just want to be good neighbors and have a backyard that my kids can play in finally this year.
Okay, thank you for that. And it is a beautiful backyard. So the neighbor, Mr. Hardy, is it? And any comments you would like to add?
Yes. So I don't have so much problem with the bar structure. I know they were mentioning like how close it is. That's not really much of an issue for me. It's not creating really any problems for me. The water does drain down, but it would come over my side anyways because of other issues. The deck though is a huge problem because we have a huge fence, but you can walk right up to the deck. So you've only got a 4-foot fence when you have the deck attached to it. The deck should also not be attached to the fence structure. It's not meant to support the extra weight. It's just there to hold up the fence itself. And I understand about gravel and stuff underneath, but we have that on our other side as well. And it's just something that when houses are built close together, you just have to sort of figure out what you're going to do in that little space.
Okay.
We've had lots of problems with that in the past. We tried with the neighbor, said they would stay off that part of the deck. They stayed off for a little bit, but then they came back again. And it just never ends up being a good thing because people lean on it, drinks, cigarette butts, things fall over the edge. Right. I'm not saying this because this was not at all directed at my new neighbors.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. I'm going to go to the committee members. Questions, concerns? Steve?
I unfortunately did not get out to take a look at the piece of property. I wish I would have, but I know like if you go to any of the big hardware stores, they have those screens that you can put on, like privacy screens that you can put on. Is that a possibility to resolve the privacy issue from like to put it on the railing of the deck?
I don't believe so because then it's right on the fence and you're just building the fence even higher. He should have never built the deck right over to the property line because the house has already moved over closer than everyone else is anyways.
And is it primarily the privacy issue that...
Sorry?
Is it primarily the privacy issue you're...
It's privacy, but it also, we do have large dogs and when people are right on the deck above them, it drives them crazy. One of my dogs was made sick by things falling over, eating cigarette butts and other things, not by these people at all, but by the previous ones. So it's just, I built a deck on the other side and I was made to have it 5 feet off my property line. So I don't understand why, if we have bylaws and people are made to respect them and abide by them, why they don't apply to everyone.
Frank?
Well, just a comment, again, I appreciate everybody's situation here, but I mean, we have rules, and I mean, this pushes the rule right to the end, and I just don't think we can let it happen. I think it's unfair to the people owning the neighboring properties.
Any other comments? Brian?
Sorry, probably just more a question. So if we do go forward with enforcing the movement of all this stuff, like, what are the ramifications of that? Is it on us, or is it on the previous owner? Or, like, I know it said that it was done without permits, but you know, it's obviously was an issue that was addressed before the sale. So that's all I would want to know, is are we putting ourselves in the middle of something that maybe we don't want to rule on until somebody else has decided what to do? I guess they probably need us to rule whether you get rid of it or not, but that's all I would want to know, is where do we stand from what's that?
Legal perspective.
Yeah, from our legal perspective, like for us to go and do this.
Through the chair, two-member Derbyshire, everything that was done without building permits. The municipality was not aware of anything that was happening. The pool structure falls under the size requirement for a building permit, so they did not apply for anything that is done in the backyard. The municipality became aware when we received a bylaw enforcement complaint from the neighbor about everything that was going on. As the current owner mentioned, there was a building infraction there was an outdoor toilet, outdoor bathroom, that the owner was required to remove, and that was removed prior to the sale closing. However, because there was no inspections, there was no permits that were done for these structures, the municipality was not aware. So they are illegal structures, and it's hard for me to say that, there's no, we would not be held responsible for this. We were not aware of any of these things that were happening until there was a bylaw enforcement complaint made. And we went in and we saw the encroachment concerns.
And that was made after the purchase.
I believe the bylaw occurrence happened before the sale, or when it went up for sale originally. Perhaps the neighbor can confirm that.
Yeah, I do believe it was before the purchase.
Like, that's all I'm getting. If it's already started before the purchase at some point, then something should have triggered, not just the urinal in the backyard. Like, there should have already been something on record that this doesn't work, right? Which then would have allowed these people not to purchase it. That's all I'm kind of thinking, is if it was already started as a bylaw infraction and yet we still kind of allowed the sale, it still went through without anything on the books from us.
There was so it's different bylaws that are affected. So the encroachment of the structure and the deck are our zoning bylaw. There was a building code infraction with the outdoor toilet, or outdoor bathroom, sorry. So there was an order placed on the property to remove that, and it was registered on title, which is why it was brought to the attention of the new purchaser. The zoning concern, there was an outstanding bylaw infraction, and if, this was done right up at the wire of the sale. Had this happened months ago, when the purchaser's lawyers was doing their due diligence and had contacted the municipality to say, are there any outstanding orders on the property, it would have been triggered at that time. But it was because there was kind of this, they did their due diligence and then this sort of thing happened. That's why they were not made aware, and the owner did not make them aware as well. So I would say that, you know, instead of the municipality being responsible for this, like it's certainly a civil matter between the previous owner and the current owner.
Frank?
I hate to do it, but I will make a motion to, that the minor variance be denied, as recommended.
Any support for that? Yeah, Randy? And then the vote, all in favor? Okay, that carries.
I think the new owners have right to be angry.
Yep, you do. Yeah. Okay, so then we're going to move on. The application for minor variance A2 2025 544 Regent Street, Mount Bridges. The owner is Bandman Developments. Is anyone here regarding that one? No, seeing none. Melissa, then I'll go through your report.
Thank you, Chair. The minor variance application before committee this evening is seeking relief from section 6.35 of the zoning bylaw to permit a single detached dwelling to be constructed with a rear yard setback of 3.88 meters, whereas 8 meters is required. The applicant also seeks relief from section 4.295B of the zoning bylaw to permit a required setback to the municipal drain of approximately 12 meters, whereas 18.5 meters is required. The subject property is located on the north side of Regent Street, north of Glendon Drive in Mount Bridges. The property is a shallow pie-shaped lot and is currently vacant of any structures. The lands abutting the rear of the property contain the Lipsit drain, and about half of this property is within the Regulated Conservation Authority area. The applicant has identified that this is the shallowest lot in the subdivision, which is the reason for the requested minor variance, as the proposed single detached dwelling on the lot would encroach into this rear yard setback. Due to the location and the size of the Lipsit drain, there's also this required setback of 18.5 meters requiring a variance. This setback to the Lipsit drain was considered during the original subdivision process, including the location of the rear lot line. It was noted at this time that the erosion hazard limit was approximately 8.25 meters to 9.38 meters from the top of the drain, which is under the requested 12-meter setback for the municipal drain. 2 comments were provided by the public after the development of this report. The first member of the public notes their opposition to the applicant as the land is under the protection of the Conservation Authority. The second member of the public notes their opposition to the application due to its risk to the Lipsit drain and concerns for drainage, flooding, and long-term environmental and legal consequences. Provided agency comments include the Senior Development Coordinator noting that the municipal drain setback was considered and reviewed at the subdivision approval stage. It is identified that the erosion hazard limit was approximately 8.35 meters to 9.38 meters from the top of the drain, which is below this requested setback. There's also appropriate access to the drain provided through the original lot configuration of the subdivision. The St. Clair Region Conservation Authority advised that all applicable requirements for the lots in this Timberview Trail subdivision should be addressed through the subdivision agreement. Therefore, they have no concerns with the proposed minor variances. I reviewed the application against the 4 tests of the Planning Act. As indicated in the report, it is staff's opinion that this application does meet the 4 tests. The house will not be constructed within the identified erosion hazard limit, and amenity space will still be provided through the wider side yards and the remaining of the rear yard setback on the property. Therefore, its impacts are considered minor. Constructing a single detached dwelling on the property is an appropriate use of the land, as it will allow for the property to be used similar to its neighboring lots for residential purposes. It also will not be impacting residential neighbors, as there's no lot adjacent to that rear yard setback. It maintains the intent of the official plan as it is within the residential designation, and the proposed dwelling to be constructed will remain outside of this hazard limit to respect floor plans and floodplains and the natural environment. It also maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw as appropriate separation between dwellings and lands for privacy reasons is respected, and adequate amenity area will still be maintained. Additionally, the Conservation Authority has advised that they have no concerns regarding this municipal drain in this context. And as such, I'm recommending approval of minor variance application A2 2025. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone in the audience that wants to speak to this one? No? Then I'm gonna go committee members, any comments? Steve?
So I guess through you, Chair, to the planners, so I'm assuming that the two neighboring houses will end up having the same issue, because I don't see a building envelope large enough to extend into the conservation controlled areas. That'd be a fairly safe assumption at this point.
Through the chair, concerning, yes, if there is any building envelope that's still within that conservation regulated authority area, they will need to get a permit from the conservation authority at the time of
So the same process we're going through now, essentially.
Well, through the chair to Member Pelkman, during the subdivision process, the developer is required to provide building envelopes that meet all of the zoning requirements and demonstrate that they are all buildable. Hence why the lots were created the way that they were. So certainly there is a buildable envelope that meets the setback requirement in the zoning bylaw. However, their specific building plan is sort of more narrow, long and narrow. So that is why they are looking for the setback reduction. However, like I said, during the subdivision process, they do demonstrate that the lots can accommodate the zoning with an appropriate building envelope. So not necessarily that we will see these types of setback requirements. It's sort of dependent on their house layout.
Okay, second question.
Sure.
So I know you talked about the erosion hazard line. That's kind of the first time I remember hearing that term. Is that the same as what would be considered the flood line, or not? Like, at what point do we, like, I know, when you look at our park system, there's an area where they can't build because it's within the Hurricane Hazel flood line. Does that come into play here?
Through the chair, it's related but not quite. Erosion hazard is more like thinking about the houses on Adelaide Road, where the water line erodes the bank over time and causes structural issues with the house. The flood line is somewhat different, and it's completely dependent too on their flood modeling with this particular municipal drain. So not quite the same thing, but similar.
When they're proposing their building envelopes, I'm assuming that would all be part and parcel of the conversation?
Absolutely, and it's all in collaboration with the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority.
Okay. Answer your question?
Yep, that satisfies my concerns.
Okay, any other comments? Yes, Brian.
Thank you. Sorry, I just had a comment somewhere along the same lines as what Steve was thinking. We have situations where we have areas designated that we're not supposed to be kind of messing around in, and yet we still do things like move closer to a creek, build a house closer, and then in 25 years, if something goes wrong, somebody's going to say, who on God's green earth thought it was a good idea to let these people build this close to the stuff? That's the only thing, when I get looking at stuff like that, I think it doesn't make sense, and I don't really want my name attached to it, but I do understand they are 12 meters away from the erosion line, but we're still, a fair chunk of this whole property is within what is controlled by the Conservation Authority. And if we were out in kind of rural parts, we wouldn't be doing anything with these things. They would be telling us, you don't have anything to do with this red area. So that's just kind of my take on a bit of this stuff here. And we're probably not going to stop progress at this point. They gave them a lot, so if it meets your variances, it is what it is. It's just, that's my 2 cents on it.
Okay, thanks for that, Brian. Any other comments? Frank?
make the motion that the application for minor variance be approved
Okay.
as recommended.
Supported by Brian, or Steve, sorry. All in favor? And that carries. Okay, now we've got an application for minor variance A3 2025, and this is 24640 Melbourne Road. Owners are Patrick Burdick and Paul Vancroft, and they're in the audience. Hello.
Pamela Burdick.
Okay. And Melissa, I'll go to you first for the report on that.
Thank you, Chair. The minor variance application before committee is seeking relief from section 4.5BB of the zoning bylaw to permit a secondary suite in an accessory building that is 130 square meters in size, or 93% of the gross floor area of the primary dwelling, whereas the bylaw restricts secondary suites to a maximum of 75 square meters, or 40% of the gross floor area of the primary dwelling, and must be located above the main floor. The application is intended to permit the existing dwelling as a secondary suite and to allow a larger proposed dwelling to be constructed on the same property and to be the primary dwelling. The subject property is located at the southeast corner of Melbourne Road and Calvert Drive in Strathroy-Caradoc. The land contains a one-story single detached dwelling, a steel frame garage, a steel frame barn, and multiple greenhouses. The owners also run a propagation garden center from this property. The applicants are proposing a reverse secondary suite situation in that they would construct a new larger dwelling on the property that would serve as the primary dwelling unit, and the existing dwelling would become the secondary suite. The new dwelling would be about 1,500 square feet in size and would be located 140 meters northeast of the existing home. No comments were provided by the public prior to the development of this report. Provided agency comments include the Senior Development Coordinator having concerns with the distance between the proposed dwelling and the existing dwelling. They should be in close proximity to avoid impacts to the agricultural land. The Middlesex County Engineer advised of no comments, and St. Clair Region Conservation Authority has advised of no concerns. I have reviewed the application against the 4 tests of the Planning Act. As indicated in the report, it is staff's opinion that this application does not meet the 4 tests. Both dwellings would be very close in size, making it difficult to identify which is the primary dwelling. The location of the secondary suite would also be closer to the road than the primary dwelling, making it hard to identify which is supposed to be subordinate to the other. A 93% gross floor area is drastically above the 40% secondary suite size limit, therefore this cannot be considered minor. While secondary suites and single detached dwellings are permitted use, the proposed location of the new primary dwelling creates concerns about providing a new access to its location, as there are multiple buildings in the way of where the previous access onto the lands is. The buildings are not clustered as required due to this 140 meters of separation, and the new dwelling is also being proposed directly on agricultural lands being used for crop production at this time. Therefore, this cannot be considered an appropriate use of land and is essentially asking for 2 dwellings on 1 lot, which is not permitted. This does not maintain the intent of the official plan or the zoning bylaw due to the size of the secondary suite and the location of the proposed primary dwelling on agricultural lands. And as such, I'm recommending denial of minor variance application A3 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Anna, any comments? There you go.
A lot of comments.
A lot of comments? Okay.
So originally when we put in our application, it was, we have a house, we'd like to build a new house, but it's a perfectly fine house in most respects. Why waste it? So we thought, well, there is a housing shortage. Can we rent out the house? We didn't know about the bylaws, whether that might be a use, or even for an employee to use it as a dwelling or a garden suite. We weren't sure. So on the application, we listed several different possible uses for the house. The secondary suite was the one that was chosen, and certain developments have happened since we put in the application with my parents. They recently had to move from the house, which was their home, around the corner on Walker's, and they moved into a retirement village. They had put their name in at the retirement, well, all of the retirement villages in Strathroy for like 2.5 years. Since then, my father has had some dementia problems, health problems, what have you, and he's 87. My mother is 78, and she's his primary caregiver. And they used to have a nursery basically right across from our property on the Glen Oak side road. He's used to being out in kind of the country. He's having a very difficult time being in a smaller space with people walking all over. Anybody that knows what it's like to have someone with dementia will know. He does not leave my mother's side, and she, of course, is being stressed. Caregivers usually have a lot of health issues because of the stress they're involved in. So we are hoping that we could have a temporary garden suite of our existing home for as long as they're able to use it. Again, his age, I don't know. And then we would build on the back part of the property. And when they no longer could use the house, it would be demolished. We have absolutely no wants or desires to ever sever that piece off. We would put pen to paper for that, as well as come to an agreement that we will demolish the house when our parents no longer need it. That is basically all we're asking for. And as for the plan or the discussion on the secondary suite and where the house would be located on the farmland, the new house, I don't know how many people have heard of Caradoc Blow Sand and everything, Blow Hills. That parcel that we've chosen for the primary house is located on the highest point of our property. And I'm not sure if anybody knows Brian Payne. He rents a lot of land. He is our tenant. And I discussed it with him, and he said that would be a perfect place to build it, as the crops don't grow there. I mean, it's pathetic soil. It's the worst on the property, part of the reason why we chose it. And there also is easy access out of the driveway. It's already there. There's gravel, there's tarp, everything right up to where the garage would be. It may not show well on the photo, but it is there. So there's easy access already there. No driveway needs to be put in. No farmland needs to be taken up. We as a nursery, we are very considerate of the environment. We have planted on that hill as much as we can, plants that put roots deeper into the ground and can use that area as much as possible. And we've left the worst piece where we could potentially build. And with water issues as they be, with heavy rains and everything, where the current house is, well, we have water issues there.
In the basement.
In the basement. We do not want to build there again. I mean, the house has been there for 100 years, and I don't think anybody's going to care whether it stayed another 10 years, so we can care for our parents. So we're just asking for a temporary relief. We are in no way asking for a secondary suite. So that's, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add.
Okay, thank you for that.
We just wanted to take care of our parents.
Okay, we'll go back to committee members. Oh, Aaron, good. Would you like to go first, Aaron?
Sorry, I do just want to preface the discussion with that is not what the application is about. If the applicant is looking to have a temporary use to allow the house for a certain period of time, that is more appropriately through a rezoning application, and that is something that we do consider and we have done in the past. So I would, minor variances in nature are not temporary. So if that is the route that the applicant would prefer to go, then I would just suggest that perhaps a rezoning, temporary rezoning would be a more appropriate avenue, but up to obviously your discussion.
Steve.
So a motion to defer then would be appropriate in order for you to have a conversation with the client to see what's the most appropriate way to move forward. Does that work? Then I'll make a motion to defer this item.
Okay, any support for that? Randy? Frank, you're all in favor?
No, can I ask?
Yes.
Sorry, just, it's not that I don't agree with what we're doing. So in moving to the rezoning then, right? He would be rezoning for a new house while keeping the other one.
Through the chair, it would be, yes, it would grant him the ability to construct, get a building permit for the new house. And the temporary use zoning, there's usually like an agreement portion that's required, and it has a time limit associated with it as well, with options for extension for the period of time that is required. So it is a more appropriate avenue than the minor variance.
Okay. And that would still allow him to put the house where he wanted to do and kind of do what he wants to.
It would give him the permission for the two dwellings, yes.
To go the other way. Okay.
If that is council's will, if they
No,
approve the
I
application.
just wanted clarification just for myself so that I knew what when we're moving it, what it was. So, if it's the right thing, so.
Okay.
I'm good, yep. Sorry.
Got supported, all in favor? And that carries to defer. Number 6, any inquiries by members? Hearing none. You see the schedule of meetings that are listed there for our next 3 meetings. And then I'm looking for a recommendation for adjournment. Randy, supported by Frank, all in favor? And we're adjourned, thank you.